Thank you, Mr Speaker. I rise to support this bill in its third reading. As the Minister said, the aim of the bill is to enable the Crown to recover the costs of aviation security, biosecurity and customs traveller processing from the operators of new or re-established international airports or international airports which sometimes request travellers be processed in a non-routine manner. The Minister said in his third reading speech that this bill has had support from parties across the House, and that's true. And it's also true to say that Labor was involved in developing a similar cost recovery policy back in 2004, and there has been a long process of working through these issues. What I find interesting, though, was the Minister's comments about how biosecurity is a high priority for this government, given that this bill was introduced in September 2010, and it had its first reading on the 16th of September 2010, referred to the Primary Production Committee, and people were given just 1 month to make submissions. And in fact, reading the submissions, that was one of the complaints from submitters, a truncated process. And I know there's been a lot of discussion, but that was one of the complaints that was done. And it does give rise to the question again, which we have traversed before, is why that had to happen, given that we are now finally reaching the third reading of this bill something like 4 years later. So, you know, I do question the government about that, but having said that, we all know that biosecurity and customs services come at a huge cost to the Crown, and any new international airport should have to pay some of those costs. We already have a high number of international airports per capita, and some of those international airports, well, all of them, every one of them requires a replication of biosecurity and customs services and additional costs to the government. Our international airports are in Auckland, Hamilton, Rotorua, Wellington, Christchurch, Dunedin and Queenstown. So that is a large number of international airports for a small country like our own. As I said, Mr Speaker, we went through a process of proposing a similar cost recovery policy in 2004. We were concerned about the time period, and there was a big discussion about that. And we do approve the move to lower the cost recovery period to just 2 years, as it does under this bill. While this bill is right to make new international airports pay their fair share of the cost of customs and biosecurity, it is about time that the government started paying fair attention to the issue of biosecurity. There has been an Auditor General's report quite recently, and it's got some pretty damning evidence in it that New Zealand is at risk of a major biosecurity threat because of the government's obsession with cutting costs and restructuring. We have seen under this government a merging of departments and shuffling agencies. We've got mega agencies, super agencies under the auspices of Stephen Joyce and other ministers who seem to think that shuffling deck chairs is a good way to look like they're doing something. That old adage, you know, when you don't know what else to do, you restructure. You know, then it looks like you're actually taking some action. And of course, as part of that too, I mean, under this government, there was a restructure in 2010, a restructure in 2011, a restructure in 2012. Now, I just want to pause here for a minute, Mr Speaker, and pay tribute to the staff on the front line working in biosecurity, customs and AVSEC, who have been trying to do their job through all of these restructurings. They're now part of one ministry called the Ministry of Primary Industries. But what we saw during that period between 2008 and 2012 was a cut of 91 biosecurity officers And dogs, those lovely little dogs that we see when we come through customs, who come, and those are the beagles. The beagles. They cut the number of beagles. And I'm sure that the member, John Banks, would have been unhappy about that, because he talked about the beagles too, didn't he? He liked beagles. Yes, well, it's true. I know that since then, Nathan Guy was kind of forced to increase the number of biosecurity staff, and actually has had some nice photo opportunities with little baby puppy beagles. He's got some, yes, that's right. I saw that in the newsletter. But he was kind of forced to do that because of the risk to our biosecurity, the risks that we are seeing. But the truth is, during that period in Budget 2009, they cut $3.5 million from biosecurity over 4 years, and again in 2010 they cut a further $9.5 million over 4 years. So on average this is about $3 million a year that, from a vote that has around $180 million, $190 million to spend. And indeed the Auditor-General pointed out that there has been a cut in capacity in the appropriations from the year 2007-08 through to 2011 and 12. So we're looking forward to the budget forthcoming, Minister, and we hope we'll see some remedies around this issue, because of course biosecurity is becoming, almost every week now there is an incursion.
Under Labor.
Pardon? Under Labor. Almost every week under this government there has been an incursion in our biosecurity. And what the Auditor-General was warning about is that a foot and mouth outbreak could cost the country something like $13 billion, but we're not ready for that, we're not prepared for that. And so I hope again that the Minister took that report seriously, and we can look forward to some money being put in the budget back into those restructured departments, back into the staff, and it follows the recommendations again of the Auditor-General, who was saying that there needs to be a lot more work done on supporting those staff, on training, on preparing for a major outbreak that could come any day. We just don't know. And we also, of course, what we know, Mr Speaker, is that PSA disease has had a terrible, terrible impact on the kiwi fruit industry. And the researchers from Lincoln University are estimating that by 2015 it will have cost the industry $410 million and approximately 1,400 jobs. So, the costs to the country are tremendous. And so, going back to what I said at the beginning, Mr Speaker, we are supporting this bill. There has been a lot of work done over many years on it. We cannot afford to take risks either with our biosecurity or with customs or with aviation security. They are very, very important parts of protecting our border, and the cost recovery proposals in this bill, along with the grace period that's proposed, are supported. I know the Select Committee did a good job at looking at that, and I do want to give respects to the member, Shane Ardern, who I know is a very good committee chair from my experience of working with him. Not a bad bloke. And in fact, I think that it will be a shame when he leaves Parliament. He's one of the decent blokes around this place, one of the good people around this place. And so I know that he led the Select Committee through this in a very professional way, even though most of them have now left, and he'll be following them. And I'm pleased to support this bill.
I call the honourable member Shane Ardern.